Hi grade 11s, we are taking a look at 6.4, which is solving rational equations. And I've given you here the steps that you're going to use to solve these. Basically, first we factor, then we find non-permissible values. Then we're going to multiply out by the lowest common denominator, and that will get rid of the denominators. Then we'll just isolate the variable and check our answers. So let's give the first one a try. Okay, so here we're going to start again by factoring all the denominators. So when we factor this, the first one here is a difference of squares, the second one, a 6, can be divided out, and then the third one is already factored. So the factored form would look like this. Now, when I look at this, I see the lowest common denominator would be what includes everything from the denominators. So I see that I would need an x minus 2, an x plus 2, and a 6 in my lowest common denominators, again, because that includes all the pieces of the denominator. Now we're going to multiply each piece by that lowest common denominator, and then some things will cancel for us. So for example, when I multiply by 6, x minus 2, and x plus 2 on each piece, and then again I'm multiplying, so some things are going to cancel with the things we're dividing by in the denominator. So in this first section, I see that an x minus 2 would cancel and an x plus 2 would cancel, leaving 2 times 6, so 12. Here a 6 would cancel and an x plus 2 would cancel, leaving me with 10 times x minus 2. For this last section, we have x minus 2 would cancel, leaving me with 6 times x plus 2. So notice now that all of the denominators, since they're dividing, have been canceled out by the things we multiplied by. From here, we're just going to simplify. So I'm going to multiply the 10 and the 6 in. So we get 10x minus 20 and 6x plus 12. And then I'm going to combine here my 12 and my 20 to get minus 8. And then we have to just move things to combine like terms. So I'm going to move my 6x over to be with my 10x and add my 8 over to be with my 12. So we'll end up with 4x on this side and 20 on the other side. Divide out that 4. So my answer is that x equals 5. Now I missed a step in here. Remember that you should always state your non-permissible values. So right from this beginning step, before I canceled things, I should have stated my non-permissibles. So I see that x cannot equal 2, negative 2, and that's it. Because the 6 does not have a variable attached to it, so there's no non-permissibles there. So again, only the x minus 2 and the x plus 2 would have non-permissibles. And then finally, you should always check your answers. And remember that you check by plugging in x equals 5 into everywhere that you have x's in your original equation. So I would like you to try this one on your own. And I will post the solution on here in just a second, but pause the video, try it on your own first. You should get an answer of y equals 12. Alright, so here you should have multiplied everything by the lowest common denominator of y minus 3 and y minus 6, because when you factor out the denominator on the right hand side, you end up with y minus 6 and y minus 3. So remember then, after you multiply everything, some things are going to cancel for you. So after you've got everything all canceled, you end up with this step right here. Then you're going to multiply the 9 in and the minus 4 in. And make sure just that your sign is correct on this 12. It should be a positive because a minus 4 and a minus 3 is positive 12. Then we combine like terms, so you should end up with 5y on one side and 60 on the other, so y equals 12. Alright, now we're going to look at one that is a little bit uglier. So there's a little bit more factoring and stuff in this one. So start though by only factoring the denominators. Again, we don't want to make the top any more complicated than we have to. So we'll factor that denominator. Okay, now when I look at this, I see that there's a k plus 2 and a k minus 2 involved in all the denominators. So that's going to be my lowest common denominator. that I'll multiply by k plus 2 and k minus 2. So again, by k plus 2 and k minus 2 for each part. Then we're going to look and see what can cancel. So the k plus 2 is going to cancel from the first part, the k minus 2 will cancel from the second part, and both k plus 2 and k minus 2 will cancel from the third part. So we'll be left with 4k minus 1 multiplied by k minus 2, subtract k plus 1 multiplied by k plus 2, and then on the other side equals k squared minus 4k plus 24. Now you can tell that there's some foiling here that needs to happen. So we're going to try to FOIL all this stuff out. Now, once you have actually gone through the FOIL process with these, you should end up with what I have here. And one other little thing then that you have to notice is, again, that was a subtracting sign. So the subtracting sign has to be applied to all the pieces of that polynomial. And now finally we can combine our like terms. So the 4k squared and the minus k squared is 3k squared. The minus 9k and the minus 3k is minus 12k. And the plus 2 and the minus 2 will be 0. Again, on the other side we still have k squared minus 4k plus 24. Now I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to move everything to one side because I can see that it's quadratic. So when you're solving a quadratic, you want it to equal 0. So I'm going to subtract the k squared over, I'm going to add the 4k over, and I'm going to subtract the 24 over. So we end up with 2k squared minus 8k minus 24 equals 0. Now I can see that these are all divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide out that 2 because then it's going to be easier for us to factor. Because now I have k squared minus 4k minus 12, which factors into k minus 6 and k plus 2. So your two answers end up being k equals 6 or k equals negative 2. But you have to be careful here, because if you take a look at your non-permissible values, okay, non-permissible values from the original equation, is that k cannot equal negative 2 or positive 2. So that means the solution we got of k equals negative 2 is extraneous. And remember, extraneous means it can't work. So I only have one solution here, and that's k equals 6. So I'm thinking we're going to need to try another one like that together because I know that was tricky. So let's start here. Step 1, factor. Now once you've got it all factored, you should be able to see that your lowest common denominator would be x plus 2 and x minus 3. Also, non-permissible values are that x can't equal 3 and negative 2, so we'll have to watch out for those later. But for now, let's multiply everything by the lowest common denominator. All right, then here's the step where we do our canceling. So we take a look if there's anything that can be canceled out. And I see there's some x plus 2's from that first part, some x minus 3's from the second part, and both the x plus 2 and the x minus 3 from the other side. So we're left with 3x times x minus 3 minus 5 times x plus 2, and then minus 25 all by itself on the other side. From here, just simplify. So let's distribute those two leading coefficients. So 3x squared minus 9x minus 5x minus 10. It's a minus 10 because minus 5 times positive 2 is negative 10. Equals negative 25. Now again, this is quadratic, so I'm going to move everything to one side of the equation. So I'm going to add that 25 over. So it equals 0. So we get 3x squared minus 14x plus 15 equals 0. From here then, we need to either factor or do the quadratic formula. I'm going to factor. Now I did show using the box method over to the side, but from here we're just going to take our factors. So one of our answer is x equals 3. The other answer, if I set it equal to 0, I have to add the 5 over. So we get 3x equals 5, and then divide out that 3. So x equals 5/3. So now I have two answers, but remember that that non-permissible value was x cannot equal 3. So that 3 that we got is not an answer, meaning our only answer is x equals 5/3. Now here I'd like you to try please the questions on page 348, number 2, 3, and 6. Ask me if you need any help, and have a great rest of your day.